If you love Arizona real estate or the opportunity to move around our beautiful state of Arizona, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Iconic Estates, a podcast presented by Russ Lyon, Sotheby's International Realty for people who love luxury and the opportunity to live in the pristine desert. I'm your host, Renee Dee, and I will be with you each month for the show. On the pod today, I've got award-winning architect Brent Kendle, who will talk with us about the importance of design as it relates to a home's value. Sherri Monteith, managing broker for Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty, talks about our hot market in Arizona. And then we'll talk with Blake Cain, a global real estate advisor with Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty, who focuses on northern Arizona and all of its mountainous beauty. So let's get started. All right, well, this is going to be a fun podcast today. I get to chat with my friend Brent Kendle because we are talking about real estate and architecture today. So thanks for joining me on the pod.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Renee.
It's going to be fun. So, as we were saying, so you're not a realtor, you're an architect, but you are the guy that designs some of the most beautiful things that are available for sale.
Well, thank you. Very kind.
Yeah, and I think you've even been the architect behind some of the record-breaking sales that have happened over the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah. We have. We've been very fortunate about that.
There's one house that I think sold 2 years ago that was kind of the highest price per square foot, so you set the record for that. So that's kind of a fun little real estate tidbit. But today we really want to dig into architecture. So as it relates to real estate, there are clients all around this beautiful state of Arizona that are going out and finding a piece of land and saying, you know what, I would like to build a house here. And so one of the first things they need is a guy like you to take a look at the lot, give them some advice, and then, work with them to design their dream home. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that whole process. And what's the part of the process that you enjoy the most?
Well, they're obviously kind of discovering the property. I mean, design for us, it's all about the client and it's all about the site and coming up with something that is kind of uniquely embodies both of those. So, the funnest part of it for me, surprisingly, is on the programming side of things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the design part. I mean, I probably should say that's my favorite part because I get a lot of joy out of that, and kind of when you have that aha moment and finally solve that kind of creative problem. It's there's not many things that are better than that. But what I really enjoy is the programming side of things, and by that's when we get to ask the client a lot of questions, and we get to know the client, and they share kind of their lifestyle and what makes them tick. Yeah. Just like how they like to spend a typical weekend, just like everything, where they like to vacation, those kinds of things, because we're really fortunate to work with probably arguably some of the world's most successful people. Yes. And there's not one formula for success. And so when you meet these people that are, very impressive individuals, it's just really interesting to figure out how they tick and understand, how they got to where they are, and then trying to kind of manifest those qualities into a piece of art.
Yeah, a piece of art for sure. Well, one of the things that's really cool about building a custom home is that as you take these fascinating clients that you have, you can learn little idiosyncrasies even, or preferences of these different clients, and you can fulfill anything they want. So they don't have to have the standard kitchen. They don't have to have a standard roof. They don't have to have a certain number of bedrooms and bathrooms. They can have whatever they want. So it's really your job to kind of understand what would bring them joy. Somebody who is a huge cook. Okay, well, how do we make that kitchen even better for somebody that cooks all the time? And I know I've toured some of your homes where, you'll say to me, well, the homeowner, she's a chef and she wanted all these things. And so you get to be very, very specific about delivering, what your clients really want. How do you uncover that? I mean, you're asking them questions, but are you just leading them through a process sometimes?
Well, it is certainly an iterative process. So there's that. We mentioned there's that questionnaire and so forth. We might tour some projects. A lot of times I want to ask. One of the questions we ask is, what do you like about your existing home? What would you change if you could about your existing home and the way that you live? And funny enough, sometimes you have clients that haven't built before, which is most clients, and they're used to doing things a certain way. So sometimes once you kind of understand maybe how something might work better, like best example I could think of is laundry. People that grew up in the Midwest and in a traditional home grew up with a home. Typically, the laundry room's off the garage, which is between the kitchen and the garage, and it's the mud room, and that's where all the laundry happens. And the bedrooms are either on a different floor or in a different part of the house. And trying to sometimes convince them that, well, the clothing is generated, or the dirty clothing is generated on that side of the house. Maybe that's where the laundry room should go.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes, and they'll go, no, I'll just fold everything on the dining room table like I do now. It's like you're building a 6,000 square foot house. You don't need to fold your clothes on the table. But
we can give you an island in your laundry room.
That's right. With a TV and a bar if you want it.
Yeah.
So it's really just it's being a good listener and being observant for sure. But we also, in our design process, for instance, you mentioned kitchens and cooking and so forth. We have one client. I think you've probably even published their home up on Choya, and she's loves to cook. And so we designed like 3 or 4 complete different kitchens, all in 3D and everything, for her and her husband, but mainly for her. Yeah. And really work through each one what was the best setup for her. So it is that kind of iterative process. We put up 3 or 4 different examples. There's things that they like about each one of them, and then it keeps kind of getting closer to the right solution for them.
Yep. This just makes me go off on a little rabbit trail over here, but one of the reasons to hire an architect is because an architect is going to figure this out for you. Somebody who is maybe drawing a house, or somebody who doesn't have the experience, is going to be the person who's going to put the laundry room on the other side of the house, far away from the bedrooms, or not realize those interesting, important moments that need to happen in a kitchen designed for a chef. I'm thinking about one of your houses, and I think we're talking about the same one, where you designed the kitchen for the wife who is a chef, but then also realized that there needed to be this great sort of immediate access to other rooms in the house, and you had that door that was a secret door on the living room side. You didn't know that there was a door, but on the other side you knew that there was a door, and it just created this very convenient, very logical, like, oh my gosh, everybody would think to put a door here. But the fact of the matter is, everybody wouldn't think to put a door there. Right. So you thought to put a door there.
Well, again, that came out of the process. So there was, in that particular kitchen, which is really nice because it's like a chef's kitchen in that the main dining room and the kitchen are one space. It's not so much of a great room house. There is some division between the kitchen, dining, and the living kind of family area in that particular home, and maybe in large part because it started off as a remodel, which turned into basically a tear down and rebuild. But certain things kind of started and stayed in their current location in that case. But also when I think about, what's better than going to a great restaurant with a great chef and sitting at the chef's table in the kitchen while they're cooking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, nothing's better than that. So anyways.
And I know you're a foodie, so that's why you thought of it.
Right. Yeah. But the family room, where frankly it was the husband that wanted to kind of watch TV on the big screen and all that, was on the other side. We also thought that in a resale standpoint, which wasn't that important to them, but we thought about it, that would actually be a great place for a formal dining room. So the pantry that we had off the kitchen, which just happened to be between those two, and it was really when the husband said, I would really love to be able to get up during the game and grab a beer without having to go around into the kitchen. It was like easily done, but we just need to kind of hide this, secret door in this steel panel that matches everything else, and it's right there. And then in the future, double bonus or whatever. If you ever wanted to convert this to a dining room, now it's a perfect butler's pantry.
Yes.
It passes right through.
Yeah. Great real estate concept that you just brought into that, which is designing for resale. So that's a whole other topic too, whether you should or should not design for resale, but good to be thinking about that, especially if you're not going to be in that house for a long time. So that's really interesting. I think it's interesting, for people that are, again, either you're going to go out and buy a house that's already, built and existing, or you're going to build a house. It's definitely a journey to go through that process. And so what advice do you have to people that have gone out and found a piece of land? Like, where should they start that process? And should they chat with you before they close that deal?
I mean, ideally, yes. We're really fortunate. Again, most of our clients, most of our projects are on lots with great views. Not all of them. Some of them we have to kind of create that view, but a lot of times clients will be on the fence about 2 or 3 properties, and so and frankly, they don't know. Like, this property may have this amazing view. They don't realize that it's a great view, but understand if budget is a concern, you're going to spend $1.5 million cutting a driveway up to get to where you want to have that view.
Yeah.
So we can see that pretty quickly. Or, if you're given a choice of just from an orientation standpoint, like, this lot has a great west view. Well, just know that the afternoon sun is going to be the most challenging thing to keep out of the house.
Right.
We've done some really nice homes. Again, I think you published one that is almost faces totally due west, and we did everything we could to keep the sun out of the home, and we do that probably for all but maybe an hour in the fall when the sun is low and so forth. And we just accepted, look, we're going to enjoy that view 90% of the time, and then we're going to have the shades come down for an hour, and then it'll go back up, and we get to enjoy the sunset.
Yeah.
So I guess just being able to look at a lot and kind of have a vision of what it could be, and to be able to share that with a client, I think that's really valuable in helping people decide if they pick the right lot or which is the better of the ones they're considering.
Yeah, so you'll go walk these lots with people
Absolutely.
before they buy them, right?
Yeah, I usually walk them before. I mean, we'll get a phone call or an email. My first question is, what's the address? I'm like within 5 minutes looking it up on the parcel maps, or I'm looking it up on Zillow or whatever, and I'm looking at that lot. If it's in Paradise Valley, like a lot of ours are, I will probably drive by that lot on the way home.
Yeah.
We talked about what's important to our design, the client, and a lot. Well, lots, every lot has a unique spirit to it, and we want that spirit to kind of talk to us and inform us about what kind of home could exist on that lot, and how to take the most advantage of the assets that lot provides.
And you can see things that sometimes even a homeowner can't see, like, did you ever think that we could do something like this, or we could do something like this? Because you've got the trained eye to be able to imagine, even sometimes further than what a homeowner could imagine.
We had a client that had bought a very expensive lot in Silverleaf years ago, and they hired an architect, went through the whole process. I mean, they were many 6 figures into the process, and they originally came to us to design a modern interior for their Tuscan home up in Silverleaf. And at the time when I really could have used the job, at about the end of about a 2-hour interview, I finally said, you really want modern. It's very obvious that you really want modern. And it's like, are you going to be happy living in a home? Like, what does that say to your kids, about your values? That you have this home on the outside that is this kind of Tuscan thing that you don't really believe in, but it's in the right neighborhood. You want to be in it. And then you have this completely kind of almost schizophrenic interior that's modern.
Yeah.
Like, the two don't go to each other. It's like, and I remember my advice to them was, you should go find a lot that is hopefully not in a very restrictive HOA or maybe not in an HOA at all, where you can do the kind of home that you want to do. And I thought I will never hear from them again because they've got all this money invested. And like 3 days later, he called me. It's like, we put the lot up for sale. We're looking for a lot. And the result was they found a lot. They wanted a hillside lot. What they wanted is they wanted a lower lot, a flatter lot, but that had hillside views. And so what we ended up, we found this lot, or they found this lot, and I went out like every weekend with them. They had a minivan with a ladder in it and the kids and everything. And we go out to these lots and put this ladder up in the middle of the lot because what we talked about was an upside down house. It's like, you know, you don't have to, you can find a lot and you go, that neighbor's going to block my view, that neighbor's going to block my view, and that neighbor's going to block my view. Yeah, but all of a sudden we move your main floor up 12 feet. And now we have an upside down house, and now you're looking over everybody, and you have tremendous views. So, you know, it takes kind of a creative mind or somebody that's maybe solved that problem before to take a look at a lot and see those possibilities. Yeah, I like what you said, to be able to solve that because you've seen it before. I think the very first upside down house I ever saw was the one that you did in Paradise Valley. I can't remember the street of it, but it was, I mean, really cool house. And I remember thinking, I'm like, this is a great idea. Yeah, and you know, today, I mean, most of the homes and most clients we have want a one-story home. They want to age in place. They don't want a lot of stairs. And there's some debate about whether stairs are actually good for your health or bad for your health as you age, because maybe they keep you in better shape. But that's a different expert, debate. But that's what I think. Know? Yeah. But a residential elevator just is. If you're building a $4 or $5 million home, a residential elevator is like $35,000. It is not a deal killer by any stretch. So even if you don't, like they didn't put the elevator in, why they lived there. They did sell the home several years later, and they put it in just to help it sell. So I thought that was interesting. So we planned for it, but they didn't have to spend the money for it. Yeah. But it wasn't a lot of money to start with. Right. So, I mean, it's kind of like you hear oh, should I put wood floors in to help sell the house? And most real estate agents will say, no, that's a waste of money. Well, they put a residential elevator in, and it's like it probably was a little bit of a perk, an amenity. So, and it just wasn't that much money. I mean, I do think it's the truth that there are there's a certain population of home buyers that are looking for that one-story house. And so if you've got a two-story house, you've got to make it appealing for the people that really want a one-story house if you're going to try to sell it to them. Right, so it totally makes a lot of sense. I like the idea of stairs. I want a house with stairs because I think it's good for you. But you know what? I get it. And there's some people that should not be on stairs. So, so that sort of solves that. But so in the home buying process, you've got clients that are out there, again, looking for a piece of land and they want to build a house. Let's talk a little bit about what we sort of touched on at the beginning of this, which is, should you design your house for resale, or should you design the house that you just exactly what you want? Well, everybody has different goals. Yeah. I will tell you, my personal opinion is if somebody is designing a home and they're because I've heard this many times, well, we need 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, whatever, because that's what our agent told us that would be good for resale. And I have 2 questions. First of all, who's all living in the home? Typically, it's just husband and wife. Yeah. Kids are grown and gone. And then it's how long are you going to stay in this home? And it's usually, we're going to be in this home like 10 to 15 years. And it's like, you want to furnish and air condition those 3 extra rooms or whatever it might be for that time. So there's that aspect of it. I mean, I don't think you should ignore resale when you're designing a home, but I will tell you that the homes that we've designed, like the one you brought up at first that broke the record, okay? That's a home on a 3-acre lot in the most prestigious part of Paradise Valley that was designed specifically for an individual and who didn't really care about resale. But when it came on the market, it was so unique, and it was something, granted, it's not for 90% of the population, but there's like 5 to 10% of the population that get it, that love that want that can't find that anywhere else, and are willing to pay for it. And they did. And so that broke record. Another one that I know.
And that was a spectacular house, not giant.
No, that was part of the thing. I mean, it was a roughly a 5,500 square foot home with a 500 square foot guest casita, and on 3.5 acres next to a home that was like 19,000 square feet. You know, it's just crazy, and it doesn't have bowling alleys. It doesn't have home theater. It didn't have any of those amenities that you kind of list, you know, as these big showstoppers. It was just pure architecture
and
done,
art.
Yeah, done to take the most advantage of that site, and to be a timeless, you know, there's not I wouldn't give it a style. I mean, I call it modern. Some people would call it modern or contemporary, but it's not a stylistic home, so it's never going to be out of style. And yeah, I was really happy to see the value. But you know, there was another home I think you guys featured at one time, our Desert Jewel home, which is an upside down house. It's a hillside home, but that was a home that I remember we designed specifically for a client who ended up selling that house. I think they received an unsolicited offer like 3 weeks after they moved in for like $3 or $4 million more than they had in the entire process of building that home. And then it sold a couple years later for like $3 million more than that. Some of that's the market going up for sure. But my point was going to be, we designed that as a very custom home for a client. And so everything was at a very high level of craft and material and detail. And those homes, I think, you know, people go out in the market and they look at, you know, spec homes are expensive these days.
Yes.
And, you know, to be fair, most spec homes aren't at the same level. A few are, but most of them aren't at the same level as a custom homes from a level of quality and craft. And so, you know, the homes that we've designed that have resold, they've resold very quickly for a large profit. I mean, our Desert Wing home is almost 20 years old. That home, last it went on the market for something like 3 times what it cost to build back in 2007. And for a 20-year-old home. Yeah. You know, it's, you know, some of that's the market, but in 20 years, you know, most homes would be old and tired and not have that kind of cachet and look dated. Yeah. And yet that home, every time it sells for more money than the last.
Well, I think you really think about designing in a timeless way. And I know the word timeless is overused a lot, but really what you're really working very hard to not be in a trendy place with things. You want finishes and design decisions to be kind of long and lasting. So this really begs the question, does good architecture increase in value? Maybe ahead of,
hopefully I just shared some examples at least of what we've done. But I do think that, you know, truly great design. I mean, there are people that really appreciate that, and they realize that 85% of the rest of the world out there, you know, you can't find it. And so when you find it, it's worth it. I mean, I just, you know, I always use the example of kind of like you can buy a Corvette, which is a very nice car, or you can buy a Bugatti. One's 10 times more than the other. The difference of that Bugatti, though, when you get in, it's the stitching. There's like every little bespoke detail about that car. And there's somebody who wants that level of quality and craft, and, you know, has a big checkbook, is going to appreciate that. And if you want the best, they're going to pay for the best.
Yep, I agree. I think it always is a great investment to have outstanding architecture, because you look at it, it's just like, gosh, you know, if it's timeless and, you know, it doesn't, we know all the houses in Paradise Valley, right, that went through that phase where it's like, oh my gosh, whoa, we're going to have to probably tear that one down, which is so sad for me to see houses that have just become so unbelievably dated that you just have to just demolish it to bring it up to speed with, you know, what we're seeing today, you know. And so I think to see things that are classic and that last for a long time. But I think outstanding design, I mean, it does become a piece of art and it becomes collectible. You know, some people, you've got people who say, well, you know, I want a Kendle design collaborative house and I'm going to wait until one becomes available, or I'm going to try to buy one, or I'm in one and I want to get another one, or I bought one and I'm going to design another one. I'm going to see which one wins.
Oh, well, I did have that. That was,
yeah, you had that.
Yeah.
So I think that that brand becomes very important to the value of the real estate. I mean, I think the real estate is improving, you know, on your brand.
Sure. Well, the other thing I think that's important to us is none of our clients want high maintenance homes. And, you know, there was a period there, we mentioned some of the kind of styles that were more old world and had a lot of exposed wood and things that probably looks great in a different climate, but is not really, you know, don't do well here in our desert environment. And I challenge every decision, you know, even if a client says, oh, I saw this material and I really love it, I'd love to have it on the outside of the house. And I'll say, you know, is that something, you know, I'll look into it. A lot of them already know. It's like, what, you know, just realize that decision to keep it looking like that, you're going to be refinishing that maybe every year, maybe every 3 or 4 years. And so, and the refinishing of that might be $17,000 to $20,000 to do that. Is it worth having that? Or can we find something else that is like, you like just as much?
Yeah.
And when you leave it for 4 or 5 months and then come back, it looks great. And 5 years from now, it looks great. So there's no such thing as a maintenance-free home, but if you use the right materials for the desert, or if you're designing up in the forest, or if you're designing by the ocean, you take all those things into account and design with the right materials and the right details and so forth. It will look good for a long time. It will treat you well. Yeah. It won't cost you a ton of money to maintain, and it will hold its value.
Yeah. And I think that's how it's supposed to go. We're not supposed to try to force these materials. I mean, if you've got to be redoing something every year, then the selection wasn't quite right for the place. You know, maybe that's a good selection for where we came from, Chicago. Maybe that works great there, but maybe not here. So in kind of wrapping this up, what would be some of your best advice for people that are embarking on this process of building a custom home? So we absolutely advise, you know, retain an outstanding architect. Like, we already know that's a great recommendation. But in addition to that, what's your best advice for your clients?
Well, gosh, well, put together a team. You know, it's not it is a team effort. It's always a team effort. We more often than not tend to be the quarterbacks of that team. So even when there's a landscape architect and an interior designer and so forth, we will be involved in all those aspects and kind of help quarterback that for the client. But it is assembling the best team possible. I'm a firm believer that if you get the general contractor involved early, and they feel like they're part of the team, and there's a commitment to them and a respect for them, just like there's a commitment and respect to all the other people on the team, you're going to end up at the end of the day, everybody working towards a common goal. You're going to end up with a much higher quality project because you started from the beginning together and you saw that goal and you all worked towards that goal.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most important thing. I mean, don't hire an expensive architect and then, try to, bid something out to the lowest cost contractor. Because my firm belief has always been a home is only as good as the last person that touched it. So if, if your GC is not as strong as your architect or your other designer, then you're never going to realize the quality of detail and craft that maybe you envisioned originally.
Yep. It's almost like having, I don't know all the technicalities of this in the music world, but it's almost like having really outstanding music and having terrible speakers. So you hire this amazing architect who's going to do all these interesting things, which, I love the details in your homes, like those reveals. Those are not hard to do. So you have to have a really good a good builder to actually execute those details. So you hire an awesome architect who's going to deliver incredible details. And if you've got a builder that can't pull it off, well, then you just kind of, you had bad speakers for this beautiful music.
Well, the other thing is when everybody's working, one of the struggles for us on some projects is if a client is not willing to engage a builder early on, then so much of what we do is custom and unique to, whether it's a stairway or it's a, custom kitchen or some cool front door or something like that. Working with the actual people who put those together. And I'm not talking about the owners of the business. I'm talking about the guy in the shop that knows how to put those things together, or maybe hasn't put that thing together that you're talking about, but can sit at the table with you and figure out how to do it. I mean, we've taken, for a good example is a stairway that originally came in at just looking at the pretty pictures of it, it's like that's going to $190,000 stairway. And then when I get the fabricator to actually sit down with us and we go through the details and we tweak a few things, it's the exact same stair and it's $95,000 because we all worked and then we detail it so that in our drawings and the way it comes out on the site is exactly the same. So, and we've done the same thing. We've done some massive front doors and things like that as envisioned and as originally engineered by the fabricator, they were 14, 15, 1,600 pounds, and but the pivot hardware that we insist on that has a closer in it, so it will stop and soft close, so it doesn't harm children or dogs, or I guess cats too. For you cat people out there, they only go up to 1,000 pounds. And so, again, example, we sat down, funny enough, the same fabricator who did the stair detail I mentioned, we sat down with them probably in an hour meeting. We got the same door. It's beautiful. Do we change some of the details, mostly kind of the internal things that nobody sees? And we cut down like 600 pounds out of that door, and now it all works. And now it's in budget. And but that's how you do it. You can't just bid. You can't just draw something up and hope you're going to bid it out to somebody and get the price you want.
Yeah, you need a team that's going to collaborate and it's problem solving. It's problem solving all along the way. So, in wrapping up, how long's the process? So, example, I just bought my piece of land. You came and walked it with me. You said, Renee, the views are as spectacular as you said they were. We can build the house you want. And we start the journey together. What happens next?
Nobody usually likes to hear this, and I'm brutally honest with everybody, but to a fault sometimes. The process from you found that piece of land to you're moving into that house today for a custom home is, on average, probably about 3 years, because there's typically, depending on whether the home is hillside or it's not hillside, hillside would probably take longer. The design process, the design through engineering construction documents to get to a permit, is anywhere from 12 months to a year and a half. But some of that depends on, again, the team and the clients and their ability to make decisions. And we do a lot to kind of help give the client options so that they can visualize exactly what we're proposing, making sure that's what, we've heard what they said they wanted, and then we've shown them that in 3D and so forth, and they can, and we've shown them other options so they can determine and make a decision quickly. But sometimes, some clients are busy and they travel and so forth, and so that process sometimes drags out.
Yeah, it gets longer.
On average, it's probably 3 years, because if you're building a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home today, or, God forbid, larger, it's even longer. But a typical home today, every time we get a schedule from a contractor, it's about 2 years. It used to be a lot faster pre-COVID. I don't know what's changed. It seemed like COVID changed a lot of things, but
Yeah.
we're kind of back. But time frames haven't changed. Some of it is we build better homes than we used to, so some of that takes longer. So
Yeah. Good. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for joining today. This is some great advice. So for people who are looking at leaving or moving to Arizona from around the country or from around the world, you're a great architect that people could work with, and you've given us some great advice today. So thank you for that.
well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Excited to be here today with Sherri Monteith, who is the managing broker over at Russ Lyon, Sotheby's International Realty, coming out of the Camelback office. Great to see you today.
Yeah, it's great to see you too, Renee. Thanks for having me.
I have seen you lead some meetings, and you are a dynamic lady. And so I was excited to have you on the podcast today because for a lot of reasons, you're just a lot of fun, but super knowledgeable on all things. You've been with Russ Lyon for over 2 decades.
Yes.
And so you've got a lot of historical background too. So just to sort of kick us off, how did you get into real estate?
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for having me. This is super fun to be here today. I'm super very happy to be here. So got into real estate, went to NAU in Flagstaff with a degree in advertising, promptly got out of school and went, wow, I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. I don't know what I'm going to do with an advertising degree here. Wasn't a big enough city to do anything great with it. So I went to school, I got a real estate license and said, hey, I'm gonna give this a try, and went to work as an office manager. And I knew I never wanted to sell. I never wanted to list or represent buyers. I wanted to I wanted to be an office manager because I knew that's where my strength would lie. And 25 years later, I'm still doing that.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, so Flagstaff, we all know there's a little historical significance to that. So Todd and Jim were up there. So when did you cross paths with Todd Gillenwater and Jim Lyon?
Yeah, that's a good story. Yeah, they knew that they had to take the company name to Northern Arizona, and luckily Jim Lyon used a local realtor to buy his house. I happened to be working for that real estate company at the time, so I had the pleasure of meeting Jim and just absolutely fell in love with what he was trying to do, how he was trying to grow his dad's company and grow the name. And this was prior to the Sotheby's International Realty affiliation. So it was really fun. I kind of feel like I got in on the ground floor with everything as he opened a branch office in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yep, and then we know history took us, years later with the merger with, or do we call it a merger or acquisition?
We call it an affiliation. Because it's really neither. Sotheby's International Realty works if they like you, they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, we like you, we like what you're doing. You'd probably be a good fit for us. So it's kind of an affiliation.
Yeah, perfect. And so how did you see things change when that international affiliation happened?
Well, that's an interesting question because we suffered, we were very well known in the Valley. We were very well known in the markets that we were in, but you stepped outside of Arizona, nobody knew who Russ Lyon Realty Company was. You know the bigger names, Remax, Century 21, but nobody knew who Russ Lyon Realty Company was. So we joke that we are just such overachievers. We skipped the national part and we went international overnight. So how did we see that change? It was truly like drinking from a fire hose. We had to learn a lot, and we had to learn it quickly. And at the time of that merger, it just so happened to coincide with 2008, which was not a great economic time. So we had some challenges, but what we learned well, and everybody that we work with and work for now is the beneficiary of how those times were and how hard we worked back then.
Yeah, to get the whole thing off the ground. And
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
What do you think is synonymous with the Russ Lyon Sotheby's International name?
Well, the great news is our tagline is since 1947, our name is synonymous with fine properties. And my favorite part about that is it doesn't necessarily just mean upper end in terms of money. We do well with the higher end, the higher priced properties. We do well, absolutely, and that's a wonderful thing. But fine properties to me just means what a good experience. We want quality listings, and there are quality listings that exist in every price point.
So I feel like that sentiment is kind of echoed across the company, that it's also kind of like a white glove service and that it's a luxury experience at every single price point. And so I love that for the brand, that the brand is synonymous with luxury as well.
It is. It's true.
Yeah.
We truly believe that luxury, it's not just a price point, it's an experience, and everybody in every price point deserves the same amount of attention to detail and care that they receive.
That's a great thing from the consumer side to know that you're going to be well taken care care of. What is what would you say is your favorite part about the real estate business?
I'm such a real estate nerd. It's so hard to point my absolute favorite thing. I'm that person that truly wakes up in the morning and goes, wow, I get to go to work. I get to go look at homes today. I get to see everything different. I probably love that not every day is the same. There's some there's some challenging days, of course. It's not perfect all of the time. Every day is different, and that's fun. You never know what you're going to experience, and at the end of the day, you're helping people. You're helping them with the biggest asset that they will ever buy or sell in their entire life, and we get to be part of that journey, whether it's a first-time home buyer or that home buyer that's going maybe into their family home, maybe they're downsizing after empty nester, whatever the case is. We get to be part of that, and that's really, really rewarding.
Yeah, it's a very personal experience.
It is.
Moving, because you are talking to your advisor about, what you want in life and how you want to live. And all those things are very personal kinds of things. And so I bet you get to know just a ton of people, for sure.
It's so much fun. It is, just to get to know them on that level and see our clients interact with their families. And, we have very frank conversations with them about what are your goals? Where are you hoping to be? What are you hoping to accomplish out of buying this home or selling this home? So we get to know them on that level, and to watch those dreams unfold. It's an amazing feeling.
That's an amazing process, for sure. What do you think is the most fun that you have had in your role with clients? And do you have, when you're in real estate, I feel like everybody over the dinner table, hey, Sherri, I've got a question for you. I'm sure you're just always getting asked, even, outside of official work time, for your best real estate advice. So to those people that are buying or selling a house in Arizona today, what's some of the advice you like to share?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so there's so much. That's really hard to answer in just from one question, one answer. But one of the best things that anybody can do is truly take the time when you've got a question about real estate. Take the time to ask the professionals and listen to what their opinion is. The professionals need to ask you some questions too about what aspect of real estate are you interested in. If you're interested in buying or selling, what area are you in? The market is completely different in Scottsdale than it is in Gilbert, and they're only 25 minutes apart. So the professional really needs to ask some questions about what area the client is looking to. What area are they interested in? Not just geographically, but what exactly about real estate do you want to talk about right now? So we have a lot of fun with that, just getting to know the different aspects of it.
And are there things that you kind of consistently tell people, gosh, when you're getting ready to buy a property, let's talk from the buyer side.
Sure.
When you're getting ready to buy a property, what are the main things that you want to keep in mind?
Main things we want to keep in mind, we want to know your buying power. We don't want to be showing you properties that you can't afford or can't qualify for. So we want you to talk to a lender, a qualified professional local lender, to get qualified right up front, just so we know what your buying power is. That's the best way that we can help you, so that we're staying within your budget, we're helping you reach your goals, and we're making sure we're not showing you things that aren't going to be a possibility. That just leads to disappointed feelings. We want to manage your expectations.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's great advice right there.
Thanks.
What about for the sellers? What advice are you giving them?
Almost kind of the same thing in reverse. We want to manage those expectations. We don't want to promise them the world of, it's going to sell in 3 days and it's going to be 20% over what we list your home for. Managing expectations is number one at the top of that list. We want to make sure, we want to know what their goals are. Where are we going from here? Are we moving out of state? Are we downsizing? Are we upsizing? What does that look like? And we want to take a look at where do you want to be next? And we want to work backwards to make sure that we're getting you there wherever it is, on time, on your pinpoint.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're leading a great team of advisors. How about advice for them? What is it that you are most proud of with the advisors, and what do you most like to see them do when they're working with their clients?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love our team that we work with. I manage about 275 at Camelback Tower. And the number one thing that I always tell them is show up. Whatever it is, if it's hot outside, if it's cold outside, if it's raining outside, doesn't happen too often here in Scottsdale, but whatever's going on, show up. Be part of it. Be part of the office, because your office is a really, really big supporter. The camaraderie that we have going on there, absolutely unparalleled. We actually like each other. I don't know that other real estate offices like each other as much as we do. We've got a great synergy. We've got a great culture within our office. So show up every day, be part of that. If you're a little bit more seasoned advisor, pay it forward. Talk to some of the newer ones and help them be the person that you wish that you would have had when you were in that stage of your career. So show up, be part of everything that we're doing. The thing that I love most about everybody, kindness is our number one rule at Camelback Tower. Well, throughout the whole brokerage, actually. Kindness is our number one rule. We're in sales, so we're competitive. Of course, we're competitive, and we don't always agree on everything with 275 personalities.
Right.
You're not going to agree on everything, but you can always be kind.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's just a great rule in life in general. I think always having more kindness is a good thing.
I think so too. Regardless, it could be at Target or wherever you are. Like being nice, and I think it's not overrated. That's for sure. Yeah,
make the world a better place for sure.
I agree.
So I feel like technology has always been a big part of the real estate business, but we're seeing so many things happening now. Some of the online platforms and AI and things like that. What do you see as kind of that next chapter in the real estate world for the technology side, and how is that going to impact those people who are buying and selling a home?
So far, all we've seen, it's really helping everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming in just a little bit more educated. It's not completely always perfect. It's not right all the time, but they're coming in a little bit more educated, and they're asking some really, really good questions. There's certain things, there's no substitute for a one-on-one conversation and a person, answering those questions firsthand. So far, it's really only helped everybody. It's helped everybody become a little bit more educated, a little bit more realistic about what's to come and the expectations, the process that it's going to follow. It's really only helped the business so far.
Yeah. And how do you feel about the market today? So right now we're doing this podcast, and it's going to air in the summer in Arizona. So we know summer is, always feels like a slightly slower time.
Sure.
And I feel like almost every time after we get out of the summer, I hear that everybody had a really great summer. So what's kind of the market condition right now?
Yeah, it's so funny. Again, if you were one of our clients, I would say, well, let's dive into that a little bit further, and let's talk area, let's talk specifics. How's the market overall? It's a very general question.
Yeah.
Real estate is always going to be bought and sold. Always.
Right.
That happens in July. That happens right around the holidays. It happens every time. There are certain times that it's certainly more busy for us, when we're in the springtime and everybody else is buried in snow. It appears to be a little bit busy. Yeah. So do things slow down in the summer? Yeah, of course. Everybody's there, people are traveling and kids are out of school, and it's a little bit quieter for sure. But those clients that are out, that are selling right now or looking to buy right now, they tend to be more serious because nobody's really wanting to move right now unless they have to. But it slows down a little bit in the summer, but we're still selling a lot of real estate and a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, I see a lot of activity, like a lot of great stuff.
Yes.
So in the news, everybody's talking about, are the interest rates going to drop? And so as of today in the news, they're not announced to be decreased at this time. But we have a sense that one of these days it's going to happen, right?
Sure.
What do you think is there a preparation that's happening for that? How should buyers and sellers be looking at that? When interest rates drop, do you expect an increase in activity? What do you just sort of generally feel might happen?
I definitely feel there will be an increase in activity when the interest rates drop. If I had that crystal ball, I could tell you when it was, and we could all be prepared for it, but don't have it with me today. We can usually overcome. There's a lot of objections to overcome. Oh, rates are so high right now. I'm going to wait for the rates to drop. If you're renting right now, you're paying 100% interest. So let's look at that and go, it's probably cheaper to get into a house than you actually feel that it is. One thing that we warn buyers, or not warn,
it's a really good point, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We tell buyers that, hey, right now there's good inventory. There's inventory to choose from. And if we get into a spot where the interest rates would happen to drop drastically overnight, there's going to be less inventory to choose from. People are going to be snapping. They're ready to buy. They're going to be snapping these properties up. And you know what? Buy now. If you're in a position to buy real estate right now, now's the time to buy real estate. End of story. Buy now. The interest rates, when they drop, if they drop, whatever will happen, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. You refinance. You do, whatever. But if you're in a position to buy now, absolutely do it right now.
Mm-hmm. Really good advice. What about, so in thinking about the brand, so we're also very proud of the Russ Lyon Sotheby's International brand. What do you feel like is signature to that brand?
Signature to that brand? Great question. Definitely, well, if we're talking just looks, the blue sign. Everybody talks about the blue sign. They love the blue sign. Heck, we're proud of the blue sign. Mm-hmm. The thing that I love most, what means most to me about the brand, it's just elegance. Again, not related to a price point, but just old school elegance. You know what you're going to get when you're working with the Sotheby's International Realty agent. It's classy. They're well-trained advisors. We're in positions all the time where we're in a multiple offer situation with another brokerage. We've won deals just because of being Sotheby's International Realty, because they know our advisors are going to be good to work with. They are they're well versed on everything that is going on. They're honest. The integrity is high. So integrity is probably the number one thing that symbolizes our brand as much as anything.
Yeah, that's a great word for sure. So the Lions, as you like to call them, which I think is so cute, are well-trained advisors. There are so many opportunities for training, weekly trainings, office trainings, regular trainings, ninja trainings, so many different trainings, which I think is amazing to have those opportunities for the advisors. How do you think all that training is benefiting the clients?
It's 100% working for the clients, because the real estate rules change every single day. Literally every single day there's something new. So the clients, you want an advisor working for you that knows what's happening in the world today. The new forms, everything we went through with the NAR settlement changed all the time. So the more educated your advisor is, they're looking out for you. You don't want to go to a doctor that goes to medical school and then never sets foot in a classroom or never does anything again. They've got to stay up to date on everything that's going on, everything within the industry. The more education that our advisors have, they pass it along, and it ultimately works out. That might better their negotiation skills. It's just going to be better for the for the client in the long run. The more the advisor is on top of everything that's happening in the workplace.
Absolutely, knowledge is power. It's so important. What would you say has been your favorite day so far this year? Like most successful day, like just a day where it's like, this is just a perfect day.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's really going to make me think. You mentioned Ninja earlier. Yeah. You know, our Ninja, we're definitely a Ninja company. The thing that I love most about Ninja is it's just a feel-good, focus on gratitude type of training and education that we provide to our advisors. When we did our last Ninja installation, it was about the first week in April, watching 50 new of our advisors obtain their Ninja certification. It was just a proud mama bear moment, like look, or mama lion moment, I guess I should say. It was just a proud moment, not just watching these 50 new advisors come in to this training that has come to mean so much to our brand. So that's probably my favorite work day so far this year.
That's awesome. Well, great. Thank you for being on the pod. Super fun information, and thanks for your great energy today.
Oh my gosh, it's so great to be here. Thank you, Renee. I appreciate you.
Excited to welcome Blake Cain from Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty on the pod today. Thanks for driving down from Flagstaff.
Thank you for having me. This is great to be here. I'm excited. Never done a podcast before, but happy to do it. And there's always a first for something.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to have you here. So you and I talked a couple months ago because you've had some incredible properties on the market. And I know that the team at Russ Lyon really loves to lean on you for interviews and things like that, since you're such a great representation for like all things up north, I think.
All things.
Yeah. So Russ Lyon really likes to talk about like areas of expertise. So with you being up north, like what areas would you call your expertise?
So up north, I'm all of Flagstaff. I'll even go down to, Munns Park, like we were just talking about. I'll go out to Williams. Sedona I'll typically refer out there. It's, I don't feel 100% comfortable there. But, all things northern Arizona, up by the peaks, off of Forest Service Road 151. And, that's about that's where I cover.
So you've been in real estate for a while. So what made you get your license, and what year was that?
So let's go way back. My dad was in the military, right? So we traveled all over the place. We moved like every 3 or 4 years. So I never really had like a place to call home, right? Yeah. And so long story short, I graduated high school in Italy. And they said, wherever the last place you lived in the United States, that's where you can get in-state tuition, right? And so my mom didn't want me to go to ASU because she thought I was going to get swallowed up there. That's where she went. And then I knew what U of A was, and then I had just learned how to ski in Italy at the Alps there. And I was like...
Gosh, that's a great... Skiing in the Alps.
Yeah,
Lovely.
Yeah. It was actually snowboarding, so that's what all my friends did. I eventually learned how to ski in Flagstaff. Yeah, that was actually how I picked Flag. I was like, there's a mountain there. There's outdoor activities, smaller little town. My graduating class was 58, so I was just used to that, that smaller feel, and ended up picking Flagstaff because of that. Went to NAU, got my degree, met my wife there. She played Division I soccer there at Northern Arizona University. And I was thinking, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I originally was a psych major, and that didn't really work out for me because there's all these theories and everything. So I went into business, and business is just like debits and credits, right? Mm-hmm. And so I knew it was going to be business, and it was business marketing. And so that all kind of fit, and I'm thinking about what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I just felt led, for whatever reason, to work with the homeless. Now, when I heard this voice, I was like, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go help homeless people, right? That's not going to be my career. And all of a sudden, one day it clicked. I'm putting people into homes. Yeah. And it's really cool because there is a full circle moment there where I ended up helping Sunshine Rescue Mission, who they help the homeless. And I ended up helping them, purchase and sell a couple buildings up in Flagstaff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm supposed to be. So
divine intervention there.
Yeah, I haven't really been led to do anything else but that. And I find, this profession to be really satisfying and gratifying. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've been in real estate for 15 years now.
Yeah, 15 years. So I got my license, I think it was back in 2010. There were a lot of short sales and foreclosures and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I was only 22. I didn't know anything about anything. And so it was kind of scary getting into it. I also had, I worked at a restaurant as a bartender server, and that was fun. Those were fun nights. And I'd bring home a lot of cash. But I had a mentor tell me one time, if you want to do this, you got to go into it, full speed, full time. And so it wasn't till maybe 2013 or 2014 when I just went all in. But a lot of those, it was definitely a learning curve when you don't know anything, and those are all your first deals. Those are hard deals to make happen.
Yeah.
But it's been fun kind of riding that wave out of it, if you will.
And once you get a couple under your belt, then you start feeling like you know what you're doing. But those first couple of deals, you're learning, as you're doing them. And I mean, even to the point of what forms do I need, and when do they need to be, distributed, and when do I need to have these things back? Yeah.
No, but it wasn't, I think it was I forget exactly. I was 26, so do the math there, when I had my first, $1 million sale. And I was addicted after that. Yeah.
Very exciting. Yeah. So how did you find that client, and where was that sale?
So that sale was off of Schultz Pass, Mount Eldon Lookout Road. At that age, you're 26, I'm still hustling, right? So it could have been many different things. It could have been, calling on an expired or a canceled or something like that. I can tell you, I don't know exactly where it came from, but I was hustling for it. Whereas nowadays, I'm 15 years into this, a lot of my deals, a lot of my clients come from, word of mouth, which is, I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you've got a great story. How fun. I just learned so many new things about you, going to high school in Italy and snowboarding and skiing and the whole thing, and so how you got there. So one of the things is when you talk about $1 million sale in Flagstaff, that's bigger than the average bear, because Flagstaff has for a very long time, until kind of recently, minus some of the master plan communities, been a pretty affordable place. So that's a pretty substantial sale back then. Yeah. Yeah,
back then definitely it was a big one. So, and today, 2025, our luxury market, price point wise, is kind of defined by still probably anything $1 million up. And in Flagstaff, we cap out at around probably $7 million, which is nothing like Paradise Valley here, where you get stuff for $26-30 million. It's crazy. But yeah, in Flagstaff, that's kind of the range, probably $1 million to $7 million. And there's some properties up there that haven't hit the market yet. Now, there's one, for example, that I'm thinking of right now in Forest Highlands in the Estates. I think it's like a 10,000 square foot cabin. And when that hits the market, that might be very well one of the most expensive sales that ever happens in, I think, the state of Arizona. But I've been to some incredible properties up there that would definitely fetch well more than 7 million for sure. They just haven't hit yet.
So let's talk a little bit about the market.
Yeah.
So there's a couple master plan communities. So let's talk about these luxury golf communities first.
Yeah.
How many are there? Where are they?
Yeah, so we have, there's 3 big ones. We have Forest Highlands, which is absolutely incredible. I don't have the stats with me, but I think it's ranked like top 5 in Arizona.
Yeah.
And you have 2 golf courses designed by Tom Weiskopf. They each have their own clubhouse, your own pool. So you get 2 options out there. And then you have Pine Canyon, which is absolutely gorgeous. A lot of athletes live in that community. And then we have Flag Ranch, where I got married on the driving range. So I'm biased to that community.
Yeah.
I love Flag Ranch. But then you also have Continental Country Club, which is a public course. And there's also a private course next to that. But you still, even around the public course, you'll see sales, 1-2 million just around the public course. So yeah.
So how would you describe the pace up there? So for people that are outside of Arizona today, thinking about moving here, or for people that live in Arizona right now that want a place up north, which, by the way, this is a hot topic right now, and I underscore the word hot, because this is a great time to be thinking, wow, I really need a place up in Flagstaff. How would you describe the vibe up there?
So the vibe in Flagstaff is definitely a bit more of a laid-back vibe. Flagstaff is where people want to go to get out of the heat. I mean, that is a classic client that I have coming from the Valley. They've been in the Valley for a couple of years and they're ready to get their place out of the heat. They want a cabin, something like that. So, but when you get up to Flagstaff, you roll down the windows, you just kind of just take a breath of fresh air. It's like, it smells like vanilla because of the ponderosa pine trees, the sap or the bark or whatever.
Yeah.
It has this vanilla smell, and people they always comment on it. Anybody, and I forget about it because I live up there, but they're like, oh my gosh, it smells so good up here, Blake. And so I think it's a place where people, they get up there, they kind of forget it, turn their phone off, and you're out in nature and just enjoying life. Yeah. Whereas here, I don't know, I haven't lived here, but just this morning, it's like a hustle and bustle, man, out there.
We got a lot going
on. Yeah.
It is absolutely growing.
Yeah.
So Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, the entire valley is really growing like crazy, as you know from all of your Russ Lyon compatriots, for sure. But I feel like because of the wealth that's happening here, people are realizing that it's pretty affordable. I mean, even if it's a luxury purchase, that it's pretty affordable to get another place up north and get out of the heat. And I think that makes for the perfect scenario because once we hit like October here, the weather is glorious and amazing. So it's perfect to be able to have kind of the best of those 2 worlds. A lot of people having 2 houses in Arizona. So what do you love most about working up in Flag?
So what do I love most about working up in Flagstaff? Well, I live there. The reason I live there is just because it is a little bit more laid back. And it's just a great place to, raise a family. Again, a lot of my clients have second homes up there, which is great. But, Flagstaff's we have about 70,000 people there, and 25,000 of which are students coming in and out of town. But yeah, we have everything you need with the exception of like a Trader Joe's or something like that. But, it's just a great place to raise a family. It's a very good
Whole Foods, though. I have that store memorized. It's such a nice Whole Foods. I like that whole center that's right there. And just, I totally agree. So I love going up there every year and enjoying the pines and the fresh air. I mean, there's nothing better than being up in the mountains. So you're one of the top advisors for Russ Lyon, and you work with a lot of the top advisors down here in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale. How would you say the transaction process and just the whole sales process is different up in Flagstaff?
Okay, it's hard for me to speak on that because I don't know what the transaction processes are like down here. But I know when you get up to Flagstaff, there's certain things you may not think of up there, whereas you would down here. Like, is there an easement through a Forest Service road, or I'm trying to think.
Maybe septic.
Septic, you know, bats. I had a transaction. I mean, there might be bats down here. I don't know. But yeah, like weird stuff like that. I had a transaction where there was a bunch of bats in the house, you know, and I don't know if you get that down here. But, and you know, living at elevation and everything, there's all these like little nuances and things that may be different. I love my Valley agents, though. If any of you guys are watching, you know, they're a big source of where my leads come from. You know, it's usually somebody from the Valley. It could be California, and then there's a random, you know, East Coast thrown in there every now and then. But a lot of my clients come from the agents down here, specifically with Russ Lyon, Sotheby's, but all over really. And so I really try to foster those connections, and all the agents that I deal with down here, they're just like anybody else. They're super sweet, nice people. You know, we're just trying to get the deal done, right?
Yeah.
And provide the best service possible. So,
yep. And to collaborate too.
Yeah.
So what do you think, like for people that are considering moving up north, besides the fact that there's cooler temperatures, what's cool about living up in Flagstaff?
Oh man, I could go on and on about Flagstaff. So we're at 7,000 feet up there. Just a ton of outdoor activities. You know, we have Arizona Snow Bowl in the wintertime, skiing. But then even in the summer, you can go up there and there's tons of hiking, biking trails, and you can take the gondola up to the top for an afternoon, and they usually have games and everything set up. But yeah, hiking, we're so close to the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
You know, that's a huge thing. You know, we're just an hour and 30 minutes from the Grand Canyon, and then 30 to 40 minutes from Sedona, the Red Rocks. So it's a really, really neat location. Yeah, in that way.
So scenic, and just, you really feel like you're in a whole other place.
Yeah, and also we do have water up there. People think we don't have water. We do have Lake Mary, which is a nice, great big lake. You can take your boat out and do some water skiing up there. Yeah, so we got a lot to offer.
Super fun. So what about home appreciation? So one of the things that we've been seeing in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale is, technical term here, insane appreciation. What's happening up north? Today,
so anybody that bought like right pre-COVID or COVID still have a ton of equity in their house. And we typically see about 4 to 6% appreciation. The market's a little bit funny these last few months, so we're seeing a little bit of a flat line. So in Flagstaff right now, we're seeing more of a balanced market where the buyers are able to, you know, negotiate a little bit more with the sellers. So that's interesting. We haven't seen that in quite some time. And who knows, I mean, I could go off on exactly what that is attributed to, but, you know, there's a lot of factors. But I think that as long as Phoenix does well, and Phoenix seems to be just growing like so much. I mean, there's all these companies coming in and everything, and so long as that Phoenix does well, I can't see Flagstaff not doing well. And in Flagstaff, you're surrounded by the Coconino National Forest, right? Yeah. So we can't spread out like Phoenix does. And so it's becoming harder and harder to find like that plot of land, you know, that slice of Flagstaff to build your dream home on. And when you don't have that inventory, then obviously prices are, you know, going to increase. So yeah. And same with like we were talking about Pine Canyon, house being built on seriously every single street. Yeah. Right? And so that will eventually fill up, right? Yeah. And there are plans about Pine Canyon expanding, but I won't go into that here. But
well, so I'm curious about that, because I was going to say, what's coming up in Flag?
I don't know. I don't know. They're not talking a lot about it, but it's my understanding that Pine Canyon will be expanding, and there will be maybe a par 3 course, maybe a whole nother course, and homes, residential, high density, not all high density, but, you know, nice, beautiful custom home sections to that, and some commercial. So yeah, Flagstaff's kind of building a little bit out in that direction. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like there's been so much growth there, just so much. Do you feel like people, so some of the buyers that are looking up north, again, they want the cooler temperatures, but are they also looking for a more, we're hearing a lot of trends around wellness and clean air. Like, are you having people that are coming up there just saying, I want cleaner air?
Yeah. Yeah. People come up, and we don't, it's really cool about Flagstaff, we don't get any of that air pollution. I mean, if you look on your app, your weather app, I mean, it's always clear, fresh air all the time. I mean, we've never had one of those days. I've been down here, and it's like, what's the alert that comes up on the phone? It's like
the brownout.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've never had that up in Flagstaff, ever. Yeah, so there's a lot of tree huggers up in Flagstaff. it's good. A lot of granola.
Have you ever hugged a tree, by the way?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
In one of my videos.
Okay.
In one of my videos, I hugged a tree.
Okay, so I haven't seen it. So I went to a thing in Sedona, and they were talking about trees, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I have to try this because I've not done this before, and it is actually cool. The energy in a tree is amazing.
Well, it's called like, don't quote me on this. It's like grounding yourself or something. And actually, that's funny. This reminds me of this. Out in, I think it's Parks or Williams, I forget. They have, I got to take the family to check this out, but it's like a grounding experience where you actually like take off your shoes and you walk this course just like barefoot all the way around. Yeah.
So good for
I'm
you.
going to take the kids to it.
Yeah, so good for you.
That's the kind of stuff we have up in Flagstaff. Like you wouldn't find that here. Like,
Yeah.
You know?
I like it. I mean, that's what makes it really unique.
Yeah.
So Blake, for people who are thinking about moving up north, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so if you're moving up north, I would advise you to get with a local expert, somebody who's lived in the area and really knows the nuances of each and every subdivision, because while we have, there's not a ton, they each, have their, like Forest Highlands, Pine Canyon, Flag Ranch, they all have different fees, they all have different amenities, and, it just depends on what kind of lifestyle you want to live up there. And so speaking with somebody who knows how to live that lifestyle, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, local expert.
Yep.
Like you. Perfect. Yes. Well, good. Well, thanks for being here. This is super interesting, and I will probably see you in Flagstaff this summer.
Absolutely. Come on up. Yep.
Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to receive our VIP list, to receive our Iconic Estates newsletter, please go to russlyon.com, or the link is found in the show notes. I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to rate and review this podcast. Until next month, I'm Renee Dee. See you then.